Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of California MBA, and I'm happy that you could join us today. Before I welcome today's guests, I'd like to thank our 2024 President's Council sponsors. These companies provide a tremendous amount of financial support for the California MBA, in large part so that we can continue to be the strong voice for the real estate finance industry before the California State Legislature and our regulators. So please join me in thanking this year's President's Council sponsors. And those companies are AmeriHome, Arch MI, CMG Financial, Consolidated Analytics, Funding Shield, Guild Mortgage, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all so much for your support this year. We really appreciate it. And that brings me to today's guest. I'm happy to welcome Daniel Ceniceros, who is founder and CEO of Connect Media, and Gary Bechtel, who's CEO of Red Oak Capital Holdings. Daniel, Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
I know, so Gary, of course, is on my board, has been serving with me for a while. Daniel, I feel like we've known each other for a couple decades now, but I know that you two have been working together for a few years. So I'd like to kind of start out by how did that relationship get started? And Gary, what does Connect Media do for Red Oak?
Well, I'll defer to Daniel how the relationship started, and then maybe I can dive into what has done for us and what currently does for us.
I got a great story. I was just at an event a couple of days ago in Orange County, and I ran into Guy Johnson. And so Gary was at Johnson Capital.
Everybody knows Guy.
Yeah, everybody knows Guy. And so I told, I said I was just, on the phone with Gary, and I was, how Gary and I met is actually Guy Johnson, obviously was, head of Johnson Capital, and my boss was Michael Desiato over at Globe Street. Well, it wasn't Globe Street, it was really, and Marty Stolzoff. We had a really big conference every year. So Gary and I would get together, and what really happened is they would somehow, it was not an email list, it was a mail list. So Gary and I, that's how long ago it was a mailing list. Gary and I would go and sit down together, and this is probably 25 years ago, and we would work on this overall mailing Johnson Capital mail list and our mail list and subscription list and all this stuff. And it would take us a few weeks, but we did that every year for many years. So in other words, we were kind of the glue that made everything happen. And I think that I would take that, and, when he moved from there, then he, obviously went to Money 360, and we worked a little bit on some video and stuff like that. And then when he and Ray and the team started Red Oak, and started to grow Red Oak, we sat down, and he said, we wanted to work together, and he told me, be careful for what you ask for, but it's been a very, very fun ride. So yeah, I'll let Gary tell you about the rest.
Yeah, no, Danny is absolutely correct. It does go as far back in the day, when I was working with Guy. As everybody knows, I did a couple tours of duty with Guy, but it was a much different time, back then, right? There was no internet, there was no this, there was no that, right? So it was a much more rudimentary way of marketing. And Danny is exactly right? We would go through literally lists, handwritten lists, and it was hey, we got it done, and it worked. Much different today than it was back then. But you did spend a lot of time together, or we did spend a lot of time together, as I should say, at crafting that way back in the day. More recently, as Daniel said, we worked pretty closely together when I was president and building the Money 360 platform, specifically on some marketing initiatives, a lot of video, a lot of promotional videos that was instrumental in helping us build and reinforce and grow our brand at Money 360 very successfully, by the way. We took that business from, 25 million of AUM to 850 million of AUM, over the course of a year, and over almost $2 billion of volume before COVID, hit in March of 2020. And when I came over to Red Oak in August of 2020 to try to replicate some of the magic that we experienced at Money 360, Daniel and his team were one of the first phone calls I made, because while Red Oak was very well known within the broker dealer and registered investment advisor channel as far as raising capital, it was really unknown within the mortgage banking brokerage community as far as generating and originating loans. So we needed to build that brand, much like we had done at 360, and build that brand awareness. So, we use Connect literally for everything that we have done and continue to do relative to brand awareness, marketing, web presence, everything, Susan. So, and they've been instrumental in our growth, right? We went from being a relative unknown, other than people knew me and some of the origination personnel and others within the organization that I've brought on as I've built this organization. But Connect's been an integral part of us being able to build that brand and build market awareness. And so they've been instrumental in our growth. And again, I couldn't have done it without them.
That's interesting. I've known you guys have been, working together for a long time. I did not know about the commonality of Guy Johnson. I knew, of course, that's how I met Gary. All roads lead to Guy Johnson.
Go figure.
That man.
6 degrees.
I tell you what. But that kind of leads me to my next question. You all are talking about like how you did this 25 years ago, which we all did, right?
Right.
But what, then thinking about how marketing is done today. So Daniel, this next question is for you. What kind of innovative marketing techniques should people be thinking about to really get their name out there in 2024?
So innovative marketing techniques, great question. Gary just talked about something that was granular about, our lists, and audience development is a key factor, right? Audience development is one of those key things in making sure you're hitting the right targets. Right now, in this kind of market, being very present is a very good idea to do that, because people, if you're not marketing, what are you doing? What are they up to? Are they lending? Are they out there? Are they leasing? Are they doing any? Are they transacting? And so, with Red Oak, what we've done is we've just made sure that we're very present in the market, not only on the investment side, but also on the lending side, making sure we're around the mortgage brokers. And so Gary's done a great job on the team about that, of making sure that this is, momentum builds momentum. But going back to that part of the audience development, that's really just making sure that you're hitting the right audiences. Making sure you have snackable pieces of information that you're feeding those audiences. So pick the medium. It used to be that people used to always have these, what we call the tombstones ads, closed transactions. And those are important, right? To show that you're transacting and closing on those parts of it. But right now in this kind of a market, making sure that you are doing what we call, showing your experience, showing your intelligence, doing social media, making sure that you're present on LinkedIn, making sure that you're posting and guiding. We do a lot of work with our clients on, getting into someone of wealth of 20 plus years of experience, and then getting it into a snackable piece for the industry or for their clients to read. Now, after you've done the content calendar, now you need to pick the medium. A lot of different mediums out there right now. LinkedIn is one of them, social, some of those. But I find that a lot of our clients, when I would say 24 months ago, no one did a pay-per-click campaign. Maybe no one did retargeting on social media. No one did any of those things. I would say it kind of got a few of our clients started to do it this last year. But with the pandemic and not having events, and now we're back at events, people have kept that repetitive aspect of making sure they're staying and touching their clients. So I would say, looking at social, looking at retargeting, looking at some of those, making sure you're in front of your clients are ways of that. And that goes back to just thinking old school audience development. Like Gary and I sitting in front of a mailing list and kind of picking through that. It's the same exact way going to that now, and then taking it to your email list, loading up your email list, making sure that you're kind of lookalikes within LinkedIn. There's a whole digital strategy now that just really is within audience development. So I would say those are kind of the parts that we do. We do a lot of that with Gary. I mean, Gary does a lot of LinkedIn posts. We do a lot of that with our clients. Staying present, he gets a lot, it doesn't just turn on. You can't just turn it on like a light. You can't just say, I'm going to post and all of a sudden everybody's going to start reading me. It has to just be repetitive and consistent. And then you become a thought leader and you start showing your experience. So those are the kind of things that we work on with our clients.
I do see actually Gary and Red Oak pretty prolific on social media when it comes to commercial real estate. So it's apparent that what your plan is being very successful. Gary, let's do a check-in on the commercial real estate finance industry. So
Sure.
mid-year 2024, how is the industry looking in general?
It's been an interesting year, needless to say. I mean, interesting in brackets, right? It continues to be a challenging year, I think, for both the permanent and the construction and the bridge lending space. It's if you look at the permanent space, right, it's been relatively volatile relative to where treasuries are. We've seen a high of almost 5% in the 10-year treasury. Now we're sub 4% in the 10-year treasury. So right now it's the long-term rates are much more advantageous, and so you're seeing an uptick in permanent financing right now, whether that's agency financing, bank financing, or life insurance company financing. So and the trend is that that's probably going to continue. The outlook is that the Fed is probably going to soften rates, maybe 25 to 50 basis points, in September. I think a lot of that potential decrease in the Fed rate is already factored into the bond market, my personal view. So I think the outlook for permanent financing on a going forward basis is a little bit better. By the way, that also helps construction and bridge loans pencil a little bit easier on a going forward basis versus where it was earlier in the year. If you look at bridge lending and construction lending, that's still relatively challenged because most of those loans are based off prime and SOFR. Even though SOFR beginning of the year was scheduled to decline as much as 100 basis points from January of 24 to January of 25, it really hasn't moved very much. It's really traded kind of within this 4 or 5 basis point range. It's kind of 530, 534 all year. So at those elevated levels, deals are still relatively expensive, and loan to costs are still pretty conservative. If you're a bank, you're probably in the 60s loan to cost on a construction loan. If you're a bridge lender like Red Oak, we're anywhere from 75 to maybe 85% loan to cost. So there's still significant cash required to do these bridge loans or construction loans. So volumes overall, I think, have been down. There's still volume getting done. There's still acquisitions being done. I think the other thing that's affecting that is capitalization rates. They have continued to stay at elevated levels. So there's still a bid-ask gap between buyers and sellers. So I think between the higher interest rate environment that we've been operating within, and I think we'll continue to operate within, at least on the floating rate side, higher capitalization rates. I think the volume is going to be lower than maybe some would have liked. If I look forward, I think 25 is going to be a better year. I think the elephant in the room, quite honestly, though, Susan, is if you look at outstanding versus maturing debt, there's about $4.9 trillion of currently outstanding debt in the overall market. If you look at the bank outstanding debt, it's about $1.8 trillion, of which about $1.5 trillion matures in 24 through 28. That's a huge number that's not in large part going to be able to be refinanced. So a lot of those loans are going to be extended, restructured, foreclosed on. There's going to be a lot of pain, but there's also going to be a lot of opportunity. So there's still a lot of, as the saying goes, wood left to chop here in the next few years. Hopefully interest rates will decline and make some of those maturing loans a little bit more viable than they are in today's interest rate environment. But it's been a choppy year. I think the outlook is a little bit better if rates continue to cooperate and maybe go down a little bit. But we've had a good year. We anticipate having a good rest of the Q3 and Q4. You always want a better year, but I think we're doing well relative to the market and continue to look forward to a good 25.
And so what are you doing differently in a challenging market like this?
Well, that's a great question. As far as generating deal flow or structuring deals, or all the above?
I would say all the above, but I guess deal flow would be my first question probably.
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier in the conversation, right? Is how you brand, how you market, right? Because that's a big part of it. So, we have always utilized, and this is a continuation of the strategy that I utilized at Money 360, my previous shop, is that the bulk of the business that we generate comes from the mortgage banking brokerage community. About 88-89% of our deal flow is generated through that channel, which is typically the tier 1 and tier 2 shops, right? So the national or super regional shops. That's how we market. That's the bulk of the business that we generate. That's the bulk of the business that we close. We're not marketing directly to borrowers. So that is our kind of our primary point of contact where we get our deal flow from, because we get a high volume of high quality vetted transactions. So we continue to call on the mortgage bankers. That's one of the reasons we like the California Mortgage Bankers Western States Conference, because we can interact with a lot of our clients or potential clients that we may only get to see a couple of times a year, either at big MBA or at CMBA. So it's all about reinforcing our brand. So being able to get in front of people, whether that's at a Western States conference, or reinforcing our brand through social, through email, through thought leadership. Again, it's a multi-pronged approach to getting our message out in front of people that we're still in the market. Here's what we're getting done. Here's how we're getting it done. Because I think, look, I can tell you what I want to do, which is what our marketing materials say. I'd rather show you what I have done, what we have done as a company. And that's where the closed deal tombstone email blasts come in. That's what the case studies come in. That's what sitting across from a mortgage banker, broker, or a potential client and saying, here's the last 5 deals we did, and here's how we did them, and here's how we were able to overcome challenges within the deal. Here's how we used our gray matter to structure through the challenges of this deal, right? I think that's where kind of the rubber hits the road, and where the gray hair and being in the business a long time really helps solve challenges in deals, especially in the bridge lending space, where every deal has its challenges, right? This is not vanilla lending. This is challenging lending, and you've got to get creative, and you've got to, rely on those years of experiences and overcoming those challenges through structure to be able to provide a financing solution to a broker and his or her client that lets them win and you win.
And yeah, you brought up Western States CREF. I'm thrilled to be able to see you guys here in just a short few days. We're at our Western States CREF conference, September 4th through the 6th at Ariat in Las Vegas. I'd shared with Daniel earlier today, we are on pace to exceed our registration numbers from 2023. So I'm very excited about that. I'd like to ask you both, what's kind of be your focus at this year's Western States CREF?
Deanna, you want to start?
We have Gary will be there. He'll have, his suite and meeting with, mortgage brokers, and we'll be making sure he has all his materials, setting up press tour, making sure that, everything's set there. And, we'll be doing that with a few different other clients. We have a number of meetings. We also have, we're multi-faced, right? We have our Connect Creative, we have our news. And so with the news division, we'll make sure that, covering a few different of the sessions. And then, it's just a great event for me. I'm born and raised in Southern California. And so I get to see a lot of friends and, further, grow relationships that I've had a long time. One of my favorite craft stories is that the Cell Bank on the back of a business card signed one of the largest contracts I've ever signed at craft. He's not with us anymore, Grape Spivak, but he was a great guy. Great guy. And he said, I want to do, this was back when I was doing Magazine World. So this is to show you how long it was. He said, I want to do all your magazines and I want the back cover. And I was like, well, no, I got to lock that in. I got to beat out Pete Gessert because he's going to sign. So he said, we're going to do it right here. And he signed on the back of the business card. All the way, we had 5 publications at that point. He's like, here it is. And I got to walk over to my boss at the time would say, like, you got to kick Gizzard off the back cover. So it was, but it was, so there's just great memories. But also advice is like, you got to wake up. There's late nights there, but you still got to wake up and perform, and you got to make sure that you're in all the meetings and you're out there seeing all the booths and you're, getting business cards and do all that good stuff. So, it's Vegas is a fun city, but it's also, this is a great show to make sure that you're meeting people, moving the needle, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Susan, I mean, I don't think there's many Western states that I have missed in all my many years of being in this business, right? For me, it's really a bunch of different things. Number one, especially being part of the California Mortgage Bankers Association, it's being part of the event, right? Being part of the whole organization that goes into throwing the event, which is, has always been near and dear to my heart. From a business standpoint, it's really twofold, right? It's reconnecting, with guys in the business that I've seen year after year after year, either on the mortgage banking brokerage side, our clients or potential clients, and meeting with them, or meeting with them in conjunction with my origination personnel. But it's also, other lenders that are in the business, whether those are new lenders that I don't know, or whether those are lenders that, I've known for many years in the business, and reconnecting, and, potentially finding ways to working with one another, or seeing what they're doing, or challenges that they're having, and trying to help one another, through those challenges. And that's what this business is all about, right? It's helping each other. Because, we've all been through good times and we've all been through challenging times, and it's helping one another, through both those times, right? And celebrating the good times, and trying to help one another through the challenging times. And God knows, after 38 years in this business, there's been both.
There's been both. That's true. That's true.
Right.
You've both been active participants at Western States CREF for many, many years, but I've been really happy to see a lot of newer entrants into the market come to this conference. And so I'd love to have you guys share, like, what should someone do to get the most out of this event?
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, right, one of the things that especially being on the organizational side of it is, I think, participate in as many of the panels and panel discussions as possible. It's great to go to the parties, right? It's great to go to the events, and it's great to have meetings. But I think there's a lot of information that is exchanged within the panel by the panelists, because there's a wealth of knowledge and information sharing, as I just, kind of alluded to, that is shared within those panel discussions. And it's always somewhat disheartening sometimes. You have these great panels that aren't that well attended, and there's great amounts of information that's conveyed and exchanged in those panels. So, especially for somebody who's newer to the Western States Conference, go to the panelists, listen to the panelists, absorb that information because they're sharing years of experience, in those panel discussions. So if you're newer to the Western States Conference, go to the panels and listen to those panelists. Don't just go to the cocktail receptions. You can do that anytime in Vegas, right? There's always cocktails in Vegas. Go to the panels, listen to the panelists, do your meetings for sure, and have a drink, but go listen to the panelists, and listen to the information they're conveying, because, it's coming from years of experience.
I think that the other thing to add is that panelists, new speakers, or really anybody attending, they're happy to answer questions afterwards too. I think that if you heard something and you have a follow-up question, that know that the speakers they're always very willing to share their expertise.
I think that's for the whole conference.
I mean, for better or for worse, I'm kind of on the downside of my career, right? And this has been an industry that's been very good to me and my family, and I want to give back as much as I can to the industry. So I'm more than willing to spend time, before and after a panel, answering questions and sharing information and sharing insights. Consider what it costs. It's free, right? So
my advice would be,
I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I would say the whole conference is like that. I would say my advice to get the best out of it, there are originators there. There are people that are used to being client facing. There are other people that are within the servicing aspect of it. There's attorneys. There's a lot of different mix there. I would say everybody at that conference is approachable. I've moved from any one of those tables to any one of those tables, had many conversations. of people that all want to work together. It's an industry at that event, and I'm not going to speak for all events. I know it's hard to walk up to a group of people and talk to them, but my advice would be that at this event, I do it all the time. I walk up to a table that I don't know with people, and I sit down, and everybody's friendly, and everybody asks questions. And I think that I would, I would branch out and make new friends if you have friends there. And if I was new to it, I would say, don't be afraid to just walk up to a group, because they'll welcome you right in, like they did when I was 25 years old, 26 years ago. So whatever it was. So I've never had a problem making new friends there, and I go every year. And that's one of the best things about it. It's a great community.
Well, thank you both for being on Connect. I'm really looking forward to seeing you at Western States CREF this year.
Yeah, so are we, Susan. Be great.
You too. I know you're going to be running around, but
as usual, right? I'm like, I
As
try to say
usual.
hi to everybody, but I'm usually kind of a bit of a blur, but I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks,
All right.
Susan. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us on today's episode. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.
Here we go.